So the purpose of this meeting is just to help everybody get their library, their setup library, created and set up for next year. We kind of did this, everybody in one room here at the IWTC last year, where we spent a lot of time going through in detail how to, set up different things in the setup library. I think we have most of that same group. And so I don't intend to do that. I don't intend to go into every detail. My main goal is to help everybody with the fuel setup, or the new fuel costs, I guess, so making those adjustments to your setup library. And then the other piece of this is that DOE has approved us to basically extend the life of some of our insulation measures. And that process is a little bit complex because we basically have to put things in a very specific way in order to make the audit work. And so I wanted to walk through those as a group. All right, well, I just sent an email to everyone. If you'll check your inbox, you're looking for two documents. One of them is this WPN, that's the annual fuel costs, and then the other one is going to be the instructions on how to update lengthen our measure lives. So let's start with something we're familiar with. Let's start with the fuel costs. So if you guys will pull that up on your end and then find the page that is associated with your agency, because there's going to be a different page for each agency. So if you'll have that pulled up and have that available, and then if you'll open up the NEAT audit, and we'll get started. Hopefully every agency out there, that you guys understand that we're creating a new fuel library for the next program year. So you'll want this to be effective July 1. And then I think most of the agencies out there have kind of got to where they're really not making any changes throughout the year. So this could be your setup library for the year. But if you are running into different changes during the year, you guys are always welcome to make those changes. But right now, what we need to do is we need to open up your most current setup library. So if you'll open up whatever your most current setup library is, and I know you may have a long list in your drop-down of which setup libraries you have. Hopefully they're dated and stuff like that, so you can find your most current. Has everybody got their most current, or anybody having any issues there? I'm going to grab what looks like my most current in this library that I have open, which is actually a copy of Salt Lakes. So I'm going to select that one. And then all we're going to do is we're going to copy that setup library. So by copying this, it'll save you hours of work in trying to recreate one. So once you've got your most current setup library up, then just go ahead and hit copy. And it's going to create a copy of that setup library, and then it's going to add something in parentheses to the name so that you know it's a copy. So if you'll go up and give it a unique name that aligns with your current naming convention. I'm going to call mine Program Year 2019, and just so I don't get confused, I'm going to change the name of this, but just make sure you're naming it something that's meaningful and helps you understand that this is, something that goes into effect for Program Year 19, or effective July 1 of 2019, or whatever. So I will try to stop and ask and kind of gauge where you're at. If I forget and you are falling behind, just chime in and say, hang on a second, or give me a minute or something, and we'll wait until you catch up. Okay, so is everybody here?
Yep.
All right. So all this did was created an exact copy of that other setup library. So now we're going to make some changes, but and when we make changes, right now this new library should have 0 audits associated with it. So by making these changes, it shouldn't mess anything up. So the first thing we're going to do is let's just go to the fuel costs tab, and let's go through and update this and make sure that it matches this year's fuel cost library, or fuel cost update, or whatever it's called. So I'm going to pull up that document, hopefully. I guess I better just open a copy of it. And this might get a little small on my screen, but so I'm going to pull up the program notice with the annual fuel costs, and I'm going to scroll to my agency, or at least the agency I'm working on here, which will be Yuka's, and I'm going to go through my current fuel costs, and I'm going to verify that the fuel costs I have in the setup library either match what is in here, or I'm going to adjust them so that they do match. This fuel survey, this is something that we do every year. Brad's been doing it for the last few years, and he just finished it up a couple of weeks ago. So he actually contacts each one of these companies and finds out what their current fuel prices are, and we make adjustments to this so that we have basically uniform fuel costs for your program to use. So that's how we get these. That's how they're derived. There's some notes if you ever get wondering more about it. There may be some info on here. If you ever get into this and you feel like the numbers are way off of what you're actually seeing in your area, you can always reach out to us, reach out to Brad, and just talk to him and say, hey, why am I getting different numbers? And if we need to tweak something, we can. But otherwise, this document is the official document that we're telling DOE that we will use for our fuel prices during the program year of 2019. So, for example, in the NEAT, this agency uses one fuel library. Is that right?
We do an average. Yeah, we take all of them, do an average of what and all them costs and put it in one.
Yeah, so they've actually taken just an average of all their fuel costs and put it into one fuel library. So when they go to select their fuel library when they're running an audit, they only have one to choose from. And I'm assuming, did you basically just add up all of these and then hit and average them?
Yeah, I have an Excel spreadsheet.
Okay. So I'm gonna...
Yeah, we have like 12 different ones.
Yeah, and I've written in our guidelines that that's entirely up to your agency. You guys can choose what works best for you. Just to show you really quickly so I can get numbers as well here, I'm just going to, basically, I'm going to copy for the electric, I'm just going to copy all the numbers that are in this column really quickly. Show them. So basically, Utah Community Action used for each different county, they actually put in this number. So they put in the 0.1188 for Salt Lake, they put it in again for Tooele and Weber, and then they took this whole column and just took an average. So to do that in Excel, there's a shortcut or whatever you need to do, you just average them out. So I'm just going to average all those together, and I'm getting 0.1168. My advice, we kind of left it pretty general in the guidelines. It basically says if your utility costs are similar, you can average them. And so it's really up to your agency. But as you look at this, if you had anything that was really like a couple of pennies off of Rocky Mountain Powers, you may consider, pushing those out into their own fuel library. But really where everything's about, this is almost 11 cents. This one here that's 12 cents is not even a half a penny higher than Rocky Mountain Power. So really to average this makes a lot of sense. It makes it so that it minimizes confusion and stuff like that. So I would take this number that we just averaged, this 0.1168, and that's going to be for our electric kilowatt hours. So for Yuka's electricity, you would go in here and you would edit that so that instead of 0.1164, which is what they had last year, we're going to go 0.1168. And now the electricity is updated, and it automatically rounded itself up to 0.117 because it's hiding one decimal. So if you guys will go through and start that, if you have multiple fuel libraries, let's at least go through like 2 of them while we're on the phone with each other, and then if you have any questions about it, we can talk about it. But so each of you kind of go ahead and start doing that. I'll watch the chat or listen, and just let me know when you're done or if you have questions. Actually, so Murray, I'm just going to copy it how it's on this sheet. Tooele, RMP, Weaver, RMP, Davis, Kaysville, Bountiful.
Hey, Matt,
Yeah.
how did we convert the unit of measure for natural gas?
How do you do what? Sorry.
Don't we got to convert the unit of measure for natural gas?
Are you wondering from MCF to the decatherms? Or are you trying to change the unit of measure?
No, yeah, I was wondering decatherms to MCF.
It seemed like we...
Isn't it the same?
I think we decided to leave it the same. I think I went through this with somebody, and there was some sort of weird conversion, and then we just decided basically just put in the number that's on this document. Don't do any conversion at all.
That sounds familiar.
Okay, sounds good.
I don't know if the conversion is the same or not, but that's just what we had decided to do, is just put this number in. Because I think it was like a factor of like 1.0 something difference, but at least for now, and until I find out that it's causing us major problems, let's not do a conversion on it. Thanks for the question. So, Morgan, City, and RMP. An average, so this was electric. And then I guess I don't need to, everything else is the same on yours, right? So really on Yuka's, I can see like their natural gas prices were all 9.94. Their propane's all the same. Everything else is the same. So I just averaged all their electric, and then everything else is just going to be what's on this document. So I'm going to go into the neat now, and for natural gas, and Brad did say there were very few changes from last year, so a lot of the numbers you'll find should just mirror what you already have, and you may have one or two numbers that you've got to adjust. So natural gas for these guys, I just have 9.94. Oil is 2.56, so we're going to change that one, 2.56. We already adjusted electricity. Propane is 2.53. Wood is, maybe he was just talking about the electricity. Maybe he tweaked some of these others. 215 for wood. Coal is 200. And for kerosene, I've been putting in the same number as the fuel oil. But if you have, we have not been doing, we haven't been pulling that number. So if you have a different number and all you'd want to do is just use that number and document how you derive that number, and that would work just fine. But if you want to, just use the same for your oil and your kerosene. So for Yucca, for this fuel library, I've just updated all my fuel costs, and now I'm ready to start using this audit. You know, all the fuel costs are correct now. So but yeah, if you guys will work your way through that and then just kind of let us know when you're done.
We're done.
All right.
I got all mine. I don't mind, man.
You stepped out this one.
We're also done here.
Anybody else chiming in?
Yeah, I think they're all done.
Okay. They may need me to hold on, or you guys ready to get into the insulation measures stuff? All right, I'll move on to the insulation stuff. Okay, so that's not it. I'm going to pull this document up and we'll look at it for a minute. So the this is kind of cool, actually. The Energy Out West group, they started talking about this and basically felt like some of the measures that we install in weatherization would quite reasonably have longer effective lifespans than what we use in the audit. And they did a little research. They submitted some numbers to DOE, and DOE approved it. And so that's just a group of, 10 or 12 states. Representatives from those states got talking about something they'd like changed in the program. They did their homework, and DOE said, yeah, we can go ahead and make that change. So this is a result of that. I don't know if any of you have read through this letter, but I'm just going to go through it quickly, and then we'll talk about, because this is the workaround. So basically, the audit was, when it was designed, it was not designed to have lifespans that were 30 years long. So as it says here, you cannot directly analyze a measure with a lifetime of more than 25 years in the Weatherization Assistant, because you can't enter a lifetime greater than 25 years for a weatherization measure or fuel price indice for beyond 25 years in the setup library. However, there's a workaround method for analyzing a measure for a 30-year lifetime. The workaround involves setting the lifetime of the measure to 24 and entering an artificial fuel price index for the year 24 that equivalently calculates or simulates a 30-year lifetime. So I think we have some measures that are already at 25, and that's why they're not going to use the year 25, but we're going to, since the year 24 doesn't get used much in the library, we're going to use that, and we're going to adjust it so that it really is set up for a 30-year lifetime. So, but basically, so as example, it says all measures designated as having a 24-year lifetime will actually be analyzed as if they have a 30-year lifetime. And then note the method involves year 24. Oh, they found a bug on the calculations in 25. And then here are the steps that we need to follow. So this document came from Oak Ridge National Laboratory, the guys that wrote the audit. So these are just the steps they tell us to go through in order to set up our library properly. So step number 1, copy an existing setup library and name it something like 30-year calculations in the name. We don't need to name it 30-year calculations. We just did this step, and you've named it program year 19 or something like that. Step number 2, in your new setup library, go to the fuel price indices form and verify that you're still using the 2011 fuel price indices as originally entered in version 8.9.0.5 when it was released by spot checking the following values. So we're going to go in, we're going to open up your fuel price indice and just spot check these years and make sure that these years come up. So I'm going to do that on my screen, hopefully. So this tab, fuel price indices, which you don't ever tweak this. You know, if you ever make a mistake in this, you can always go back and grab the numbers out of a newly created folder, but we don't ever adjust these. And what he's telling us, I'm assuming Mark Turnez wrote this, but I'm not 100. So whoever wrote this is saying just verify that none of these numbers have been messed up by looking at year 1 and making sure that it still says 0.97 for natural gas. So natural gas, year 1, I've got 0.97 for my price index. And year number 2, I also have 0.97, and year 3 I have 0.96. On electricity, so if I scroll down, year number 1 I have a 0.99, year number 2 I have a 1.0, just like the document says, and year 3 I have a 0.99. Does everybody have those same numbers on their fuel price indice?
Yes.
All right. Does anybody have anything different? If so, please speak up. So we've completed step 2. We verified that we're still using the 2011 fuel price indices that is kind of the default numbers for this. So step number 3 says if the numbers in step 2 match, then change the year 24 price index for each fuel as specified below. Note, the numbers provided will simulate a 30-year lifetime analysis consistent with the 2011 price indices already entered for all other years. Although you may be performing analysis for just 1 or 2 fuels, we're providing indices for all the fuels for completeness. So we are going to enter all of these. So we're going in and we're going to enter them on year number 24 for each one of these. So I'm going to squish that back down a little bit. And I'm going to go up to the natural gas, and I'm going to go to year number 24. And I'm going to change this price index to 8.45. So right now mine says 1.27. I'm going to change it to 8.45. And then I'm going to scroll down on for oil, and on year 24 I'm going to change it from 1.28. I'm going to change it to 8.3. For electricity, year 24, I'm changing from 0.99 to 6.34. For propane, year 24, I have 1.31. We're going to change it to 8.46. For wood, I have a 1.0 on year 24. We're going to change it to a 6.41. For coal, I have a 1.08 on year 24. I'm going to change that to a 6.98. Kerosene, from a 1.28 to an 8.3. And for other, on year 24, we're going from a 1.0 to a 6.41. Now I'm just going to go back and double check my work. So for natural gas on year 24, 8.45. Oil, 8.30. Electricity, 6.34. Propane, 8.46. Wood, 6.41. Coal, 6.98. Kerosene, 8.30. And other, 6.41. All right, is everybody able to do that? Is anybody having any problems with it?
Got it.
What's I done? There we go. Okay. So is everybody feeling good about step number 3 here? We've changed everything in
Yeah, we're good.
Okay. Step number 4 says verify that you've entered the new values correctly by comparing the UPW factors that are automatically calculated for the year 24 to the values provided below, they should be within 0.01 plus or minus. So this UPW factor should, I'm assuming, automatically have updated when we did that. So
Yeah, our others is off.
by more than 0.1?
Yeah, ours is 16.94.
All right, let me look at it when we get down there. So I'm going to go through mine real quick. So natural gas, I've got 21.75 on mine. For oil, I got 22.59, which is what they have. Electricity, 19.28, which is what they had. Propane, 24.01. Wood, 1960. Coal, 20.23. Kerosene, 22.59. Other, 19.60. What are you getting, Greg? Was that Greg or Burl? Sorry.
Burl, I figured it out. I just had to move off the box.
All right. Cool. Anybody have any other issues with this, or everybody good with step number 4?
Mine's still off, Matt.
Okay. Which one are you off on?
On my other, I'm showing 16.94.
That's what mine was, but once I clicked on to a different year, it'll calculate it. I didn't think it calculated it.
So you just like clicked up onto this year or something and...
Oh, okay. Yep. Sorry, it did.
Okay. Cool. All right. Okay, step number 5. Now we're going to go to the library measures form, and we're going to change the lifetime to 24 for any measure that we want to extend to a 30-year lifetime. What we're doing is we're basically, all of these measures that they're currently, like for attic insulation R11, the current measure life's 20 years, and we got it approved to adjust it to be 30 years. So let's see if I can set this screen up to where we can actually see it. Hopefully. Maybe I can squish that down a little bit. All right. So in the NEAT audit, we're going to go into our Library Measures tab, and we're going to be adjusting the life of these measures. So I'm gonna have to squish this down a little bit. Hopefully you guys will be able to see. So make sure that you're on the NEAT, not the MIA. And we'll just start going through. So measure number 1, attic insulation R11. You're going to change that from 20-year life to 30. And you'll do the same thing basically all the way down to the R49.
Didn't you say it only go to 24?
Oh yeah, sorry. So we are putting in 24. That's why. Thank you. Because we adjusted that measure to reflect 30, right? So for R11, 19, 30, 38, and 49, all those are going to be adjusted. And then if you'll go down to wall insulation, so I think it's measure number 14. Yeah, so wall insulation, and you'll adjust wall insulation to 24. And our high efficiency furnaces, so measure number 33. So high efficiency furnace. Currently the measure life on the high efficiency furnace is 15. We're going to adjust that up to 20 years. Now everything we did with the fuel price indices and all of that stuff is not going to impact this at all because a 20-year measure life was already in there. So we're just simply adjusting that number. And then you'll do the same thing for a high efficiency boiler. And then we'll switch over to the MIA. Is everybody good on the neat measures that we're changing?
Yes.
Anybody need me to hang on a minute? All right. So on the MIA, so we're going to switch to the mobile home list of measures. And we'll start with measure number 3. So wall fiberglass bat insulation. We're going to change that to a 30-year life, so you put in the 24. And do the same for the addition, the wall fiberglass bat addition. And change measure number 5, which would be wall insulation cellulose. And the addition for that part. And then measure number 7, wall insulation fiberglass. And fiberglass in addition as well. So basically measures 3 through 8, so 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. You're changing all those to 30-year measures. And then we'll scroll down to measure number 15 and 16, which are the roof fiberglass loose insulation and the loose insulation for the addition. And roof fiberglass loose insulation. So change those to the 30-year measure. And then measure number 49, which is to replace a heating system. So the very last measure, we're going to adjust that up to a 20-year life. Anybody have any questions on that? Or does anybody need me to back up or cover anything again? Okay, so what does that mean? What's that going to do to our audits going forward?
Hey, Matt,
Yeah.
can you back up to, I think it was measure 14 and 15?
Yep. Right here?
Yeah.
Yeah, so measure 15 and 16, the roof insulation, fiberglass, the blown, and then fiberglass blown in the addition. Those two measures. Yeah, what's this going to do when we run audits now? How's this going to change or affect what we've been doing?
More likely to pay back.
Yeah, Jason's saying a higher SIR, more likely to pay back. What is? Yeah, furnaces and insulation. So as your auditors will start seeing insulation pay back more often, and you'll start to see a few more furnaces pay back. So it'll be kind of interesting. Sometimes the furnace will win, sometimes the insulation will win, sometimes you'll get both, but your programs need to be aware of that and just kind of be mindful of it because this probably means you'll be doing more measures on a house going forward. And as you guys do go forward with any of this, if anybody has any needs for additional insulation training, reach out to us and let us know. But if the audit says to insulate a wall or a ceiling or whatever, you need to be doing it. So I think we'll be seeing a lot more of this, but I'm not 100% yet. But we essentially just increased those measure lives by 33%, so we should see an increase in payback. Let me just go back to the instructions. Let's make sure we finished up what we need to. So it says go to the library measures form, change the lifetime to 24 for any measure you want to analyze at a 30-year lifetime. And then it says close the setup library, return to the main menu, click neat, and enter or select an audit. On the audit information form, select your 30-year setup library. And then when you run the audit, so basically it's saying you're done. Now when you run your next audit, or beginning July 1 when you start running audits, make sure you're using this library, and it will now start auditing based on the new measure lives. So I just had a comment that somebody had skirting or something was a different measure life. Skirting is not an active measure, so it won't really matter whatever you had over here, as long as if you're skirting, just make sure your skirting is not checked, because we made it not an allowable measure years ago. So okay, those are the two things I wanted to cover. Does anybody have any questions about those two things? Does anybody need any additional help with them? Does anybody need any help with any other aspect of the setup library so that your library will be ready to go for next year? Is there any of these sections that anybody wants me to cover as an overview or anything like that while we're all together?
How do we delete all the clients off? Do I kind of clean up the...
Okay, so Jesse Chambers is asking, how do we delete the clients? So, which is a good question. I don't know if it'll show. What did I do? Let me hit the data link. So I have this file, and here's the path to it, and that's the database I've been working on, right? I'll close that. And if I open it, it'll show me all of the clients that I have in the database, and there's 1 million of them, right? And or at least, a couple hundred. But remember that each of these clients, like these clients could be from 10 years ago, right? Their audits were pointed to setup libraries from 10 years ago. So the setup library we just created is not pointed to any of the new clients, but we're still working in this database that has all the old clients in it. So if you needed to make your database smaller, or if you were wanting to kind of archive an older set of data, then you can actually copy your database, and then you could start with this new setup library, and you could go in and actually delete out clients. Like you'd archive a copy of your old database somewhere, and then you could create this new database and basically say, the database started in 2019, and then you could go in and manually delete clients from that. If you've made a copy of your old one, then you'd manually delete it. So to show you what that would look like, let's walk through that really quickly. So what I would do for that, I don't know if does it let you make a copy here? I don't think it does. So I have to look at this pathway to see where this database is. So I would basically, you'd follow this path. So if you hit the data link button down here, and then follow that path to whatever your current database is that you're connected to. So I think this one is sitting, agency. So here's the copy, here's this database that I'm pointing to right now, right? So if I wanted to create a copy of that database, this is just a .mdb file, Microsoft database file. So I would just navigate in Microsoft to where that file is. I'd right-click on it, and I'd hit copy, and then I'd hit paste. So I just created a copy of that database file. And then I would go to the copy and I'd rename it, and I would say, oops, it's trying to open up Microsoft Access, sorry guys. It's really trying to open up Microsoft Access. So rename, and rename this something that's meaningful. So I'd probably say, you know, PY19, you know, or you could put clean database or new database or whatever, you know, whatever you want to put in there. But so now I have this database that's program year 19. And then, so back in the neat MIA audit tool, we're still connected to our old database, program year 18, right? So now I'm going to browse to my new database, sample year 19, and I'm going to open it, and I'm going to hit link, and now it's going to connect, it's going to drop its connection from the old database, and it's going to connect me to the new database. And then to verify that, I'll just check the whatever link it is linked up to, and sure enough, I'm at sample program year 19 database. So now, this old database, we're not messing with that one, we're messing with the new one, right? So this old database, I'd probably want to create a copy of this and save it somewhere that you're not even going to touch ever. I'd leave a copy of it here, but, you know, archive it somewhere so that it's safe. And then now I'm in the new database. Now I could go into the clients section, and this part gets complex, but you could start deleting stuff. And what happens is, so I've got this client here. I'm just going to hit delete, and it's going to tell me, it's going to create cascading deletes. Are you sure you want to do this? And so before you ever do this, you'd want to go in and create multiple copies of your old database so you don't accidentally screw it up. You want to double check and make sure you're in your new database. But I feel like it's easier to, the reason why I've created a copy of that is because I don't want to spend hours making a new setup library. So this new database it still has all of those old setup libraries in it. We still have all those old setup libraries plus this new one that we just made. But basically what you end up having to do is, you're not just deleting out clients, you're going to go through and delete out setup libraries, you're going to delete out audits, you're going to delete out everything that's old that doesn't pertain to it. And I've done it 3 or 4 times where if you do it in the right order, then you don't run into the cascading deletes, but you kind of just have to fumble your way through it. So if you try and hit delete on this client, which I'll do right now, and I'll hit OK, it says deleting the client record also deletes everything associated with it. Are you sure you want to do this? And I went ahead and deleted that file. If there were any audits associated with it, in some cases I found it deletes the audits. In some other cases I found I'll get into audits or other things that are associated with that, and I'll find that it didn't delete some, but you basically have to kind of go through and delete out all your clients. You'd have to go back and check the agency stuff, make sure that you don't have any extra information in there. You'd want to flip through, once it's deleted everything, you'd want to go through all your audits, make sure all those things have been deleted. But yeah, so it's kind of a mess. You still end up doing it, but anyway, you can do it this way. You could also just manually go through and or manually go through and create a new setup library. But I think you're better off to copy the setup library, because then you have every single little decimal that we've already put in there is in there. And it's easier to just go through and delete all these out. There is another way to do it if you have Microsoft Access, but this is probably the easiest way, and this will help. If you do it right in the neat, it'll help prevent you from deleting some of the wrong things.
Would you say that it's worth it to delete everything? Like, how much does it really affect?
I feel like it's worth it.
We do that because there's
Yeah.
some clients.
That's
We'll create a new database like he just said, and then we'll go through and delete all the old clients.
I think best practice is do it at the beginning of the new program year.
Yeah.
We did.
yeah. So, and I don't know if you guys, I'm not sure if you can hear Jason, but Salt Lake does create a new one every year, and it works just fine. I've noticed when I'm at that agency, I think you guys are very familiar with how to switch databases, because from time to time you're having to switch back to program year 18 to grab something, and then switch back to program 19 to start running a new audit. I don't know, has that been problematic at all, or you just had to learn how to do
When you
it?
switch databases, you have to go into the setup library and supply library every time you do the data link, and you got to reselect your newest supply library and setup library. You'll always go back to the oldest one for some reason.
Gotcha.
So like right now, if you go in there, you're connected to the oldest
It'll
one.
default back to
Yes.
the oldest one.
So whenever you do a new data link, you have to go into the setup and supply library and
Gotcha.
click on the new one.
Now, if my new database only had one setup and supply library, then it would resolve that problem.
But you're gonna have, at the beginning of PY19, you're gonna have work that started in 18.
Yeah.
That you need that old stuff. So
Yeah.
you can't go start a new year and kill off your 18.
So if you go to
stuff.
setup library right now, you can kind of show them how to do that.
You're better
Oh,
off
yeah.
to
So if you click down at the bottom,
leave them alone, bring them over.
oh wait,
to you.
no, you're, I don't know why it's not showing all of that.
Yeah, it did that same thing a minute ago.
You were just in there and it showed all of them.
I know.
That's weird.
Oh, do you know,
Getting broke.
it's just not showing them, because it's got 6 of them. So basically you're saying I've got to go in here and click into this one.
That's weird, it's not showing, yeah. But you
So-
do have the setup and the supply.
Close to starting.
Does that make sense to everybody else? I don't know if that's meaningful to anybody else, but does that answer your question, Jesse? All right. Anybody have any questions on that, or anybody consider doing that hasn't done it yet, that wants to know more
Yeah,
about
I've wanted to do it. We have like 1,500 clients.
Yeah, it's difficult, because you're drawing a line in the sand, and really for a few months afterwards you're going to be switching back to program your previous database, and you're going to switch back and forth for a period of time. But I don't know. So I don't know if you want to do it on every couple of years, every year, but I feel like it's wise, especially when I've some of these databases I've seen at your agencies that are just massive, and then especially where we're starting to see more and more little glitches in the databases and stuff. So it's probably wise to do it at least every 2 or 3 years. So anyway, anything else that, like, I'm happy to get into any of the aspects of the setup library or anything else if you guys have questions. If you don't, that's cool too. So. All right, so if you have not done it while we were on the call, go back and make sure that you do all of your fuel libraries. and get them all up to date. And then so the new fuel costs are effective on July 1, and these new measure lives are effective on July 1. So when I say effective, that means they are required. Any audits that you start on July 1st or thereafter, you need to be running them using this new setup library. So that way we're administering the program equitably across the state. So anyway, anybody have any questions before we end? All right.